All right, we're gonna go into our first real combination. Standard combination. It's the 1-2, left, right. If you're left-handed, it's the lead right going into the left hand. The thing about this is this. In this style, in the way that I teach this, you're gonna have to be diligent and disciplined enough to understand the way we move. So you're gonna go back and make sure you review the movement videos, the true boxer stance. Understand that balance and control are key in this. If you don't understand and how to maintain, to attain, and then maintain true balance and control, this is gonna be very difficult, borderline impossible to do correctly, okay? But once you understand that and you see how it works, it is one of the most effective moves that you can use. And understanding how to set this up and run it flawlessly, it's a tool that you definitely want to have. It's a tool that you're going to be able to go to and really bring home some real big dividends off of. All right. So first off, everything starts from the true boxer stance. You want to understand where you are and where your opponent is, all right? So we always talk about position. We always talk about positional advantages. You're always looking for those positional advantages. And when you get that, you got to know how to run with it, all right? So I want to show you some of the elements. First off, when we throw the right hand, when you throw the right hand, the way it is traditionally taught to throw the right hand is if you're throwing your jab here, we rotate and we throw the right hand. Now, in order to reach the same distance that you are with your jab from here, and a lot of people lean into that also, that makes it even worse, you will lean into the jab, and in order to touch your opponent that is this far from you, now all of your weight comes to your front leg and you turn in order to lean to get that. So you'll rotate into it to get that distance. Everything is off balanced. So now once you throw that right hand, everything that you're doing from there is getting back under yourself. You can't even continue to throw combinations. If you miss, you can't even adjust to get into a better position. You have to come back and grab your balance. You have to come back and regain your balance because you've thrown your balance off just to make contact, okay? So what we're always doing in this whole style is we want to eliminate that. We want to always work away from compromising your form and compromising your stance and compromising your balance just to make contact, okay? And the right hand is one of the biggest culprits of people losing their balance and losing their form in order to score, in order to make contact. And it's just like it's selling out everything, okay? So what we're gonna do is recognize that the reason you can't reach with your right hand as far as you reach with your left hand or your lead hand, and you can't reach with your rear hand, is because your feet are two different distances from the target. This foot is this far, and this one is a lot further. So it's going to come up short if you don't lean and you're just throwing it the same way. This hand's gonna always reach further than this hand, okay? So now, this is the only time we're going to purposely leave the true boxer stance, okay? So we're going to swing it in and square up to throw the right hand. And I'll explain to you what I mean by that. So now, my foot is here on the jab. Let's say I get a great positional advantage on my opponent. Boom, I'm throwing it from here. I'm going to run through this real quick, and then I'm going to break it down and show you what I've done, okay? So in order to reach the same distance with my right hand, when I throw the jab here, I'm going to step laterally to the side, and I'm going to replace my left foot with my right foot. Throw the right hand and come back. So when I'm here, I'm going to push over to the side, boom, throw the right hand from here, When my hand comes back, my hip comes back, and I'm back in position. Okay? Now, the reason we do that and why it is so effective is your opponent is used to seeing the jab come from the right hand or your power hand come from a certain area. So if I'm here facing my opponent and his jab is here, I'm used to his right hand coming from a quadrant of about right here. It's going to come into this quadrant all the time because he's going to shoot this, he's going to rotate, and that's going to come in from here. So a lot of times when your opponents see the 1-2 and they don't move their feet, they just catch here and they cover this quadrant. They cover this quadrant from the left, this quadrant from the right. And if it's backwards, it's the same thing. They used to see the left hand come in from a quadrant of right here. So they just wipe that quadrant from here, because that's where it's always coming in. As we shift over, what happens is, as opposed to bringing the right hand into this quadrant here, when I step over, I bring it here. So if he's guarding that quadrant, it's an open shot from here. Okay? That is the purpose of having this movement be more lateral than stepping down with it. You don't want to step here and come with the right hand. You want to shift so that the right hand is placed where it needs to be. Right off the quadrant, straight into the target. So you're basically keyholing it. When I throw my left, it's going to come here. When I step over, it's going to come right down the same line. And then it comes back. Just like that. And you're always going to come back to that true boxer stance. One thing I do want to point out, and one thing you're going to hear me say all the time, when we throw combinations, when you throw punches, when you make moves, you do not punctuate your combinations, you do not punctuate your moves. This thing is fluid. You always come back to your true boxer stance. So when you're sitting in your true boxer stance and you have the ability to move, and you're moving, and you have the balance and the mobility, when you throw that 1-2, you're coming off your jab, and you throw that 1-2, boom, you're coming right back into your movement. What you'll see a lot of times, and what a lot of coaches will encourage, and not even consciously encourage, it's just the way that they teach. They'll sit there and hold the pads and they'll tell you to throw a 1-2, 1-2-3, and you'll throw it, and then you stop. And then you come back in and you throw it again, and every time you throw a combination, you pause, you stop. That's what I call punctuating the combinations. And if you can get away from doing that, then you don't give your opponent those openings to where a lot of coaches are teaching guys to cover on combinations. The reason why they're so comfortable with covering is because usually when you throw a combination, you're open right after that because you stop. So they just weather the storm and score over the top of you as you take that pause and punctuate. So when you eliminate that, you also eliminate the opportunity for your opponent to counter on the back end of your combinations. They should never have that opening. Anything they want, make them work for it. Don't give them that opening. Okay? We're going to go into demonstrating the right hand, the 1-2 combination. So, what I want to point out, when you're here, and Keith is going to show you, he's in the true boxer stance, sitting down on it, balance, boom, right here, and this all works. Now, what you're looking for, one of the key elements to make sure that that 1-2 is even there, and you're going to be able to score without just reaching out and wasting your energy, is when you are running your jab and you step in your jab and you're able to hit your opponent, but he doesn't move. And you'll see that a lot where a lot of people will combat or counter or try to counter the jab, but their feet don't move, only their head. Okay? So they'll sit in here. You can shoot that jab and their body is still in the same spot. From this position where you are right here, the minute he pushes off of his back foot and sends that 1, boom, the 2, bring this over. When he comes over, he puts over, bam, it's right here. And if I'm used to that 1-2, the right coming from this quadrant right here, he has actually overridden that. And I can go into my perfect block that I always do, and it doesn't matter because the right hand isn't there anymore. So now once he hits that, and he sends it, when his hand comes back, the hip comes back, and he's right here again in the right position. So that it's key. It's imperative that the balance and the control is here. And when you can do it that way, this is almost, once you get the setup, once the elements are there, meaning when you shoot your jab, you're in perfect position, your perfect balance. Your opponent is still standing here because he's never been taught the proper footwork to move, and he wants to move his head as opposed to moving his feet. Once that happens here and he's still sitting in here, once you come through with the 1-2, boom, the right hand comes right over here outside of this quadrant. Right? And then when he pulls that back, he's already over to the angle here. So as soon as you understand how this works and keeping the movement fluent, and we'll go back to that whole two-man team that we talked about before, was letting your gunner do the shooting and letting your driver do the driving. And then it doesn't get out of hand, because what will happen a lot of times is when you're coming over to shoot anytime you create motion, if you're creating that movement and you're starting with your shoulders as opposed to coming from the proper stance and coming from your core, the minute you lean into that, you just spin out. You just spin out of control, because you'll see when guys start this and they come here and then they just spin completely out of control because they created that momentum from their shoulders and their top as opposed to coming off of their feet and pushing it that way. So we're going to go through this once more. When you're here, from here, when you step into your jab, boom, and you got that great angle here, your opponent's still standing still, he's moving his head or whatnot, but you can shift right over, and as you're, bam, you can see him standing right in line with it because he wants to block it from here. The right hand goes back, boom, and he's right back here facing me, rifle in front of me, true boxer stance, and he's right back where he started. We don't punctuate the combination. Now I got to start all over. I just took a two-piece, and I got to sit in here and start all over from a stance that I was already at a disadvantage at. This is actually pretty frustrating for your opponent to see that movement and then not have a punctuation, not have the ability to counter, not have a chance to get those punches back, which is what a lot of coaches tell you. You know, you steal some of those back. Opponent hits you. When he pauses, you steal some of those back. This eliminates that to where he has to create his own shots. He has to create his own offense. We're not giving them anything. Anything that you take in here, your opponent had to earn, or you had to screw up and give it to him.